all you wildly wondrous, wide-eyed and whimsical men and women of the World Wide Web, you have found your way to Cacophony Live. And I have a special guest in the studio today. I am ridiculously humbled and proud to introduce Nigel Bennett. Nigel was from the Members, the Vibrators, a great solo career, and is launching the Vibrators V2 right now. How you doing, Nigel?
Hi, good to be here. I'm doing just dandy, thank you. And it's nice. What a great place.
Cool, man. I'm glad you like it. This is I was saying earlier, this is like my humble beginnings here. One day when I have a big production studio and a staff, we're going to laugh about my posters.
But that might be different. It might not have the same vibe.
May not have the same vibe.
This is good. It's all about now, isn't it? Everything.
Fair enough. So I had a chance to talk with you a little bit last month. Mm-hmm. Last month, I was at Marky Ramone's Holiday Blitzkrieg, and I'm a big Marky fan. I go see Marky every year that he comes around, and I have my daughter with me.
Eva,
correct. So for the folks watching, what happened was the Vibrators took the stage, and I was aghast. I was like, the Vibrators are here. How cool is that? And my little spot in the photo pit was right in front of Nigel. And I have my daughter with me.
That's why I noticed you, because you had, and she was watching intently. And I must just remind you, we are the Vibrators V2.
V2?
Version 2.
Yeah.
So there you have it, because I don't want any stick from the old Vibrators.
Fair. So, Nigel, you, after the show was over, you hunted my Eva down, and you gave her a guitar pick. And at that point, I felt so ridiculously jealous. I'm like, this kid has no idea how cool this is. Like, right now, this is the coolest thing that's going to ever happen in her life. So I really appreciated that, and I'm really glad that you came by today. I mean, what a cool introduction to you and to this conversation was you just bestowing kindness upon my kid, and that is...
I noticed her the whole way, because she was right by the stage, and when I first looked, I thought, wow, they're allowing kids here, because it doesn't happen often.
Yeah.
And I love kids. Kids are the future, and anyone that says they don't like children, you should be suspicious of. Kids are the future. And you know what they say? Be good to your kids, they choose your nursing home.
Yes! Hear, hear. So, what I want to kind of start off with is a little bit about your history, man. So you started off with the Members, but you had a great story for me earlier that I want to just circle back to share with everyone. You had said to me that you auditioned for a couple of bands before landing with the Members. I want you to elaborate on that a little bit.
Right. When I left school and did a few awful jobs that showed me what I didn't want to do for the rest of my life, the place to find bands was in a music paper called Melody Maker, and there were 3 other music papers, but Melody Maker had all the auditions listed, and I would get it as it hit the street earlier. There was one place, and because early birds catch the worm, and every audition that wanted a guitarist, I'd speak to them, and if they were interested, I'd go along. I had a moped, and I used to strap an SG on my back with those crocodile clips, and off I went. And the only reason I mentioned the Sex Pistols and Iron Maiden is that those two went on to be famous. And also a German woman called Nina Hagen, I remember. There are probably others. I don't remember them all because I did a lot of auditions.
Yeah, those were the 2 notable ones you brought up, was Maiden and the Pistols. Yeah. What a dynamic difference between the 2 sounds, right?
I told you I went for everything. I didn't know one band from another. I just went along. And if it was a fit, it was a fit.
Yeah.
And both of those 2 weren't. And I never got put off. It's not the 99 that say no. It's the one that says yes that counts. And I tell people that these days.
Yeah.
Any job someone's going for, you have to keep pushing.
Yeah.
And,
So you said that the Members, technically is a punk band, but we don't like that branding, right? Because the Members not only had that garage feel to it, but it also kind of had like a bit of the Stones. You had blues rock. It sounded different than what we know as punk. I think that label's an unfair label. Like we were talking about earlier, like in the 70s, they kind of lumped a bunch of things together as punk that didn't sound like the same. Like Television doesn't sound like, the Members, right?
Well, the thing about the Members, and I went along there, and it just gelled. The drummer was Adrian Lillywhite, who said, you know, I think you should meet my brother. I think you'll get on well. Little did he know that I met him and we became best friends now for well over 40 years. Steve Lillywhite.
Yeah.
But the members, all the bands, all their pictures were in decayed urban settings and all of that. And the members, they had a song at the audition called Sound of the Suburbs, and I thought, how clever, so many people can relate to suburban life, not just inner city life.
Yeah.
And the thing about the members, that everyone was welcome at gigs. A lot of them, a lot of other bands, people felt obliged to wear the standard black leather jacket and all that, like a uniform.
Yeah.
And a safety pin through their nose and a tartan skirt or something. The members, everyone was welcome. You could come in what we call an anorak. I think you call it a padded nylon coat, or there was no dress code for the members. And so the misfits that perhaps didn't fit in immediately, they felt, with all the other bands around, were welcome at members' gigs, and I loved that.
Yeah,
you know,
I dig that. I love that here for all type of vibe. I mean, it's tough to be an eclectic guy or gal in a period in history where everything is like gang noise. Like you're either a rock fan or you're a punk fan. You're a blue guy or a red guy. You're a Kansas Chiefs person, or everything is just like gang mentality. And it's tough to like, you know, Queen and the Sex Pistols and Maiden and you know, Sam Cooke.
What I call it is music, because record companies love labels, and if you try and give them something that isn't immediately categorizable, then they don't like that as much, and they want it to be punk or hard rock or rock and roll.
Right.
And I've learned that from record companies, and they are very responsible for labels. And to me, there are no labels. It's what you listen to, and it's a personal choice. And I remember in punk as well, if I like something like, I was telling you earlier, I listened to anybody that had good guitar, so I listened to Van Halen for a while. It didn't move me at all, and I believe music should. But Eddie had some licks.
Yeah.
But you weren't allowed to tell the other peers that you liked that or were listening to it, because they pretended that music started with the revolution of punk.
Yeah.
And of course it was evolution from everything else that had gone before. And I remember seeing a Clash interview where they were slagging off the Stones, and what did they become at the end? The Stones.
Yeah.
They became pop stars, rock stars if you like, and looked similar even.
I can testify to the fact that Rock the Casbah is a far way away from Rudy Can't Fail. That's a different sound.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I love the Clash. No disrespect to them.
Right.
And the Clash introduced the world to, you know, the ska scene. You know, the specials. You know, I meant to ask you earlier, and I'm glad I'm asking you now. Can you shed a little bit of light? So, you know, you're in London. It is early 70s. You're playing with the members.
No, late 70s.
Late 70s. And there is this affinity in London for rocksteady reggae that a lot of people, you know, had said, you know, everyone from Johnny Rotten to, Joe Strummer, they all said that influenced the type of music they were making, not necessarily reggae, but like politically themed music, right?
Go.
Well, let me tell you, when I saw the ad in Melody Maker for a guitarist, it said, wanted lead guitar for rock reggae band, and I had never seen the word before and didn't know how to pronounce it. But of course I went along, and very quickly they showed me how to play reggae, which is just on the offbeat, really. It's lovely. The ska bands were listened to by a lot of the London skinheads, who weren't particularly nice people, but that was their music. And so early reggae, I don't know why there was more of a connection here, but we had a lot of Jamaicans in London, and maybe that's how it seeped in. But I joined the members, and we had reggae songs as well as rock, and some were a mixture of both. And I loved The Police when they came out, because I know they commercialised it, but they were fantastic. Not one or two hits, but hit after hit.
They were an early ska band, The Police.
Yeah. And they were a white reggae band, and it was amazing, and so on. So reggae happened in England a lot. I never wanted to sit and listen to hours of heavy dub. Didn't do it for me. But in the right environment, you're out and about and you hear a reggae song, it's danceable.
How do you think it evolved from skinheads in London listening to ska to like the silly, almost game show style ska we have today, like Real Big Fish and Save Ferris, like this very like happy, like a lot of 80s covers they do. Like ska today, it sounds far and wide way from like skinheads.
It is, but I mean,
like I say, people also think of new workarounds. They've got this basis of reggae, and I can see them thinking, how can we make it ours or verify it? Not verify, modify it slightly, and to make it our own. And then it's all about evolution. Any music.
You said that earlier.
Not
evolution, not revolution.
It isn't. No music came out of nowhere. I mean, most music stems from the blues back in the deep south, where the poor people that were slaves started it all off, and then you had all the bands. And I remember reading about the struggles of early black musicians trying to get accepted and played on FM radio and all that. And then the Stones were huge Muddy Waters, Howling Wolf fans, Chuck Berry, and there was a crossover there. And then I remember going to see Led Zeppelin in London, and I just thought it was appalling. They played for 3 hours, and the drummer, John Bonham, played his drums for about 45 minute drum solo, and everyone was in the toilet. This was what punk was angry. And again, one of the things, the indulgent dinosaur bands, if you like, they'd taken it too far, believed all their own press that they were gods at whatever they did. Also, that at the same time in Britain, as mass unemployment, we had the thing called the 3-day week, where everyone only worked 3 days a week, which nowadays might be a good idea, because then you wouldn't have unemployment. Everyone could work 3 days a week, perhaps, as we embrace more leisure time with machines doing more and more stuff. But then the prospects, if you were young, for getting a job were zero, and it looked very bleak and depressing. So again, along came a new angry movement, the punk movement, and they were rebelling against politicians. They were making statements. These days no one's doing that, and they have a platform, again, to protest, if they will. It's how you get your peers you can communicate with them about what's going on. I mean, there is masses of unemployment still, and I don't know so much in America because they broadcast figures, but not everyone has a job. And so on, and times are tough, inflation is crazy. No one can afford. You have the working poor people as well with jobs that can't really afford to live properly. So that was a big part of punk.
Now talk to me about how, in relation to that environment, the members came about, and talk to me a little about your early days with them.
Well, I went to the audition, I think it was on a Friday, and then we all played. Then they went down the pub, but I wasn't drinking then. I did after, and I just jammed with Adrian Lillywhite. And we played everything from heavy metal, and we played just together, communicating for half an hour. And he said, that was great. He said, don't tell the others you can play like that. Meaning, really out of the box. So, and then I got a call the next day saying, you're in the band. Someone drove over and gave me a really bad cassette tape of either a rehearsal or something. Learn all the songs, and the first gig was on the Monday, and it was all original, so I had to learn them. And the very first song of the set I had to start on my own, and I had just all this information, so I was terrified, but I did it, and then it just
took off.
And like at that point, you weren't doing 17-minute songs with like that. That was that. At the very least, that was the revolution against like the Iron Butterfly 18-minute songs. Like this was like the early days of like where we are revolting against these rock gods and doing something that's impactful.
They taught me a great lesson. They were 2 or 3 minute songs, and as a lead guitarist, I got 4 or best 8 bars to do my very best, and that was such a good discipline. Rather than noodling on forever, I got 4 or 8 bars to do my best, and that's good to have that framework, and in a short space of time to play your best. And to this day I do that. I try, because all the songs I'm doing now mainly they're not guitar indulgent.
I have to tell you, I watched you perform, as I said, in Ardmore Hall in December, and you not only sounded great and put together, like it didn't seem like there was a long amount of time from the time you were playing in front of a group of people until December. It seemed seamless, and it sounded fantastic. And it was definitely a different vibe. I mean, Marky comes out with his new guys. They all kind of look like Ramones, don't they? The guys he plays with? Yeah, they're Brazilian. Yeah. So they all have like their boss.
Except the singer, who was, he was from the Basque region of Spain. I talked to him.
Gotcha. So they all kind of look Ramone, I guess you could say. Very like Bowery, East Village, 1974. But, you opened that night out with really good rock. And I have a really great story that I want to share with you that I haven't talked to you about yet. I was picking up my press passes for the event. For Evie and I. And the guy behind me says, hey, I'm a friend of the Vibrators. I think there's tickets here for me. And I turned around and looked. And it was just a regular guy. I'm like, who's here to see V2? Who's here dressed in like not just like a kid. He was like a grown man, right? And when I turned around and I let him go ahead, he looked at me and said, I'm friends with Nigel. I can't wait to see him play. I've never seen him play. And I don't know who that was, but this guy was as excited to get in there as I was. And for good reason. Like, you tore the house down. At that moment, I didn't let that night go without trying to exchange information with you and your wife. I said, because this is such an awesome story. So I don't know who that friend is, but this guy was not a punker, it was not a metalhead, he was just a regular Joe, and he was bursting at the seams to see you play. And you did leave him tickets. She said, sir, there's actually a couple tickets here for you. So, it was pretty cool.
That's interesting. I'll find out who, because I don't deal with any of that stuff.
Yeah. Excited, though. Really excited. And you did an awesome set that night. As the members are hitting off, MTV becomes a thing.
I'll tell you my MTV story. At the very beginning of MTV, we were lucky. We had a record called Working Girl, and in the early 80s, record companies, the sky was the limit. They spent hundreds of thousands making a video because they were competing against every other band that making a video, and it was just as important to have good visuals as the record itself.
Yeah.
And someone at MTV liked it, and we were on heavy rotation that did us the world of good. But you'd expect maybe someone would recognise you off it, say in New York or LA. I remember being Tuesday night, late in, I think, North or South Carolina, and we pulled into a gas station, and I just wandered out just to stretch my legs into the gas station, and the guy behind the till went, haven't I seen you on MTV? And I thought, at that point, that's amazing, because here you are in the middle of nowhere at a gas station, and you remember seeing someone. I realised then the reach of MTV, and now it's terrible. It's all game shows or something.
Game shows and reality shows. It's just terrible. The way we consumed music in the 80s and 90s, I think gave people the opportunity to be more eclectic. Like, I discovered hip-hop music through MTV. You know what I mean? Like, I would never have known about those acts. I didn't run in those circles as a kid.
Well, you just had it running all day, the telly, because it gave you varied amounts of music, back to back.
Yeah.
And it was great, I think commercial free. And if you heard something you liked or whatever, you'd look at the screen, but it could be background. There was no Spotify or anything like that.
It ran in you're right, you ran in the background like regular music, and you could peek up and see the band.
That's it.
I remember seeing Zebra on MTV back in the day.
Yeah.
And thinking, like, these guys sound like some professional band from the 70s. Like, they sound like a Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin band, and yet they had them done up like the hair bands. And I'm like, this doesn't work. This is not This is not the vibe.
Oh,
There are a lot of appalling mistakes as well, believe you me. Tell me, from Zebra, is that where the white stripes came from?
I don't know, but that'd be really funny.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have help me get the stripes in here, and we'll ask them. So, Working Girl hits with the members on MTV. It gets plenty of rotation. Now you're recognized.
It just was good because we were touring a lot, and it got people to shows, and that's what it was all about. Ben, and God, everything's changed. In those days, you toured at a loss to sell records.
Yeah.
Now records are free. Music, no one sells records or makes any money.
Yeah.
And you make money from gigging, and that's why the huge bands play stadiums all the time, because they literally make millions.
Yeah. In fact, talking about Green Day earlier, Green Day kind of like was the resurgence of punk back into the mainstream courtesy of the alt-rock movement. Like, that was talking about labels, right? We were talking about labels earlier and how grunge music hit in 91, 92. One could venture to say that, like, Jane's Addiction, Dramarama, the Pixies, they were late 80s. That was early grunge before it had a name.
Yeah.
Then the industry gave it a name. They tried to shove everything into punk or grunge, excuse me.
Yeah.
So that's how we got Green Day, the Offspring, Rancid, Bikini Kill, the Dead Kennedys. They all kind of came out of that need to throw alternative rock music out into the ether. But, you know, for guys that love that style of music, we weren't complaining. Do I think that Nirvana and Green Day were the same animal? No, not even a little bit. But neither was the Talking Heads and the Ramones, and they're both still considered punk, right?
Absolutely. Also, they both came out of New York, I think.
Right,
And also they're grouped in a certain New York sort of punk genre.
Well, CBGBs.
Yeah, CBGBs. God bless it.
So, I want to talk now about your jump to the Vibrators, because now your chapter on the members closes, and now it's the 80s. You're in the Vibrators, and at that point, the Vibrators, at the very least, again talking labels from an industry standpoint, they had the Vibrators kind of slid into the new wave category. It was still rock and roll, but it's still kind of filed away.
Well,
how is that possible, and how did you feel about that? And do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, just to tell you, I found the Vibrators exactly the same way I found the members. There was no internet and stuff.
Yeah.
Back of Melody Maker, it said something like, established band wants lead guitar player. Phoned them up, told them who I was, that I, had a track record at least with the members. Come on down, they said. We all jammed. Then I got a call probably the next day saying you're in. And awesome. I loved the music, and also I adore Knox, the original singer-songwriter. He still writes. He's a dear friend.
Nice.
And we had so many laughs together. We're similar people, but I just loved the songs. That's why I wanted the Vibrators V2, because these songs, I don't want them, they deserve to be heard. There's some good music there, and I don't want them dead and buried.
I respect that, and that brings me to my next question, which is V2. So, you just said it, you don't want to see him dead and buried.
No. Well,
so when did you get up off the couch and say, I'm going to grab a couple of new guys and I'm going to hit the road?
I'll tell you, I moved to America. And I always stayed in London, even though my now wife says, you didn't love me enough or whatever. To be in a working band that pays you is everything. So I stuck there, but in the pandemic, the drummer just turned 70 or 71. We couldn't get together, the whole thing stopped, and the drummer had talked about retiring because it's the most physical job.
Yeah.
And then the bass player who was Finnish moved back to Finland. The drummer retired, and I thought I would move to Australia to be near my daughter. But what a mistake that was. I didn't, just because Dad's here, they're not suddenly there. I speak to her just as much, if not more, on video calls now. I spoke to her this morning. And I just didn't like it. And even though I wrote a song for the members that got to number 4 in the Australian charts in the early 80s, Australia's not for me, and America has everything Australia has times a million. It's just wonderful. And so that was a mistake. Sorry, what was your original question again?
We were talking about how V2 came about.
Oh, V2.
But you started off with a good point, though. You said first you came to America. How in the bloody hell did you get to South Jersey?
Right.
the Vibrators broke up in the pandemic.
Yeah.
I was jobless. I was in London, and the girl I'd been in love with for years, we had a long-distance, long-term relationship. I suddenly couldn't see her, and I was really worried I was going to lose her. And as soon as the pandemic broke, we were allowed to travel again. First, we found a loophole. Americans couldn't come to England and we couldn't go to America, but we found out you could go to Ireland. So a rock star friend of mine has a giant estate there, let us stay in the guest house. So we met up again, and it was wonderful, of course. And then as soon as the pandemic ended and travel was lifted, even though you had to have all the tests and masks and everything, I would come out here, and then one day I surprised her and I proposed to her. Now, because the Vibrators were no more, I asked the original members, two of them, Knox and Eddie the drummer, I told them what I'd like to do in America, and they said that they gave me written legal permission to call it the Vibrators V2.
Right.
Not the Vibrators, because the bass player, who was so uptight trying to give me stick publicly, which is, I don't understand that sort of thing, but Eddie or the others didn't want to get phone calls like, oh, are you gigging again, if I went out as the Vibrators.
Yeah.
So it's the Vibrators V2, and I do have to emphasise this with people so that they don't just put the Vibrators. It's not only is it version 2, but
V2.
But coincidentally, it's the title of the Vibrators' second album in the 70s, was called V2. So it all fits.
Yeah, it works, and it sounded great.
So I moved here to Haddonfield, just down the road, because we're right now in Boise, Idaho. No, we're not. We're in Berlin, in Jersey, and got married, and it took a lot. I found the most wonderful bass player who sings. We share lead vocals, but finding a good drummer was so hard, and I was despairing, thinking, do I have to settle for second best? Well, I'm not a second best kind of guy.
Yeah.
And then our current drummer, Rick Eddy, walked in, and it was instant, and he was the final bit, because you cannot have a good band without a fantastic drummer. They are the foundation stone, and you can't build on wonky foundation.
It's funny, I have a couple friends of mine, one of which who's carefully watching my cameras, who we decided to try and jam. Mm-hmm. Didn't know how to play instruments, wanted to learn, big music aficionados, big eclectic music collections, and I went out. And Nigel, I bought a drum kit, and I bought an Ibanez bass, and I bought a Stratocaster, and I bought everything, mics, amps, the whole nine. I turned my basement into a whole gig room, and I said,
what do you play out of all those?
I tried to play the guitar, but these little Jimmy Dean sausage fingers. I lied. I have a Telecaster, which has a skinnier neck, even harder to play chord work on these fingers.
They are if they're too skinny.
Yeah.
It has to be the right size.
Dumb idea. I spent more money on the vinyl CBG stickers on it than I did on the actual lessons. And
when I was a boy, everyone wanted to be a guitarist or a footballer. And when I say football, soccer. Soccer in Europe. And it's not a good instrument to start on necessarily if you want to use it. But, to excel in it, it's very, very difficult. The competition is amazing.
So I remember printing out tablature. Pre-cell phones, I had to print it off my laptop, right? And you're playing the tablature, and it just sounds like you're a kid learning how to play the guitar, right? Until you hear a drum beat behind you. And suddenly, for whatever reason, now you feel like you're playing music.
Yeah.
So that drumming is such an important part. You're absolutely right. To find someone that you can vibe with. You found them, though.
I used to jam at school with just a drummer. I mean, I had a school band, but if the other one wasn't available, you can go and play loud guitar with drums together. It's like the White Stripes indeed, because it does feel like music. Drummers they are the glue, they hold it all together. And you were talking about your friend who, isn't he on acid today?
I heard he was in a bad incident with acid. He may or may not, I don't know if he's burned or if he thinks he's a glass of orange juice. But either way, I'm sure he's living his best life. I want to take a quick break for our sponsors, if you don't mind. If you'll do me the honor of paying some of the bills. I want to thank King's Grant Wine and Liquors in Marlton, New Jersey. Beautiful and spacious Marlton, New Jersey, where King's Grant Wine and Liquors can be found off of Taunton Lake Road and Merchant Way. They sponsored our whiskey tasting today, and they provided us with a beautiful 18-year aged Chivas Regal. So we're going to give this a little taste test here. I'm not going to lie to you guys, I've been tasting it this whole time, but I'm going to give the official review right now. I'm usually an Irish whiskey guy. There is some Scotch that I like with my dad. I like a nice smooth Macallan, and I usually like an Auchentishan, which is kind of like triple distilled Scotch, but today we're going Canadian. So I'm going to give 18 years Chivas a taste here. Not as smooth as like a Jameson. Oaky in flavor, definitely. It could rival like an Irish Tullamore Dew, but there's a distinction that's missing that Tullamore has that this does not. It's definitely got a punch to it, but there's an aftertaste that Tully has that this doesn't. Either way, it's a great whiskey. If you're a Chivas fan, I know they do the 13-year, 15-year, and 18-year aged bottles right now available at a local liquor store near you, but most importantly, at King's Grant Wine and Liquors. So I want to thank them for this wonderful taste of Canadian whiskey today. Good for you, Canada, huh? You guys knocked it out of the park with this. Thank you guys very much. And now we're going to head on back to my man Nigel Bennett of the members, the V2 Vibrators, and solo stuff. You have a great solo career as well.
With a segue, you were talking about liquors.
Yes.
How do you hold your liquor? By the ears.
By the ears, yeah.
I didn't know that one. Oh, God. I like that though. Okay.
And also, if you had all of these fine Italian genes on you that should have made you tall and dark and suave, and all you have is pale skin and an Irish gut, you know you caught the raw end of the genetic scale. And that is my whole gig right here. I could have been tall and dark, short and pale, but I can hold my whiskey.
Irish gut is funny, but since I moved to America, I've seen a lot of big guts, and they aren't all Irish, I can assure you.
Some of us have to keep the fat kid at bay and hit the gym a little, every now and again. As I get closer to 50, I realized my metabolism was not what it used to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we are on like a Mediterranean diet. We don't do soft drinks and fast food in my house anymore, so.
I'm seeing a dietitian on Monday, and I want to learn what to start eating to be healthy. And Mediterranean diet is the way to go.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. But you mentioned solo career. I've made 2 solo albums. It's about time I did another. And what it was particularly with the first, you don't want to be typecast like someone in a soap opera on the TV.
Right.
So that immediately I had, for the first one, songs or instrumentals going back a few years that I just wanted to record.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with punk. It was just me. And the second album, called Another Bump in the Road, tells a story about 40 years of touring and being on the road. So that's what that one is about. So it actually has a thread to it.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I see so much value when I see solo acts. I ache in this back to last summer. I took my wife to see Lindsey Buckingham.
Oh, yeah.
And we're big Fleetwood Mac fans in my house. My mom was a big Fleetwood Mac fan, so we're just kind of, the generations kind of carried along. And I said, hey, listen, I have to cover Lindsey in Atlantic City. Do you want to come with me? Lindsey, like, we're friends, right? Like, I said,
I wonder what cover meant. You meant interview.
Yeah, so so I brought her down with me, and I was expecting to hear, what do I know about Lindsey Buckingham's solo career is like Holiday Road and some of the songs he duetted with Chrissy McVie, and that's kind of it. And I know his Fleetwood Mac stuff. And what I got was a tour de force of guitar work that almost didn't need lyrics. I mean, that guy plays the guitar like nobody's business.
And he has his own style. He plays the sort of acoustic, a mic'd up sort of acoustic, he's got his own type of guitar and very much his own style.
He had like four hands playing at once.
It's amazing. Amazing.
So I love that, and I love hearing that you had a chance to kind of break away and do your own story. Let's talk about V2 today.
Yeah.
Because when I talked with you in Ardmore Hall, we talked about how This is a big year for you. Can you elaborate that a little bit for me?
Well, it's our breakthrough year, but we're about to release our first single, and we're just doing a bit more work in the studio, and I can give you an exclusive that it is called Train to Conshohocken. And I wrote it because I went to Conshohocken and I love the name. It's musical to me.
Yeah.
And I thought people in the area will know the name, and anyone that hears it outside of the area can look it up.
Yeah.
So that's what it's all about, and I won't give any more away, but it will be released hopefully within the next 6 weeks. It all depends on studio time.
So you guys hear that, right? You have a London rock legend moved here, brought his craft here, and his first new single with V2 in 2024 is
Train to
Conshohocken.
Yep.
If that doesn't make you Philly fans proud, I don't know what can. That being said, where can we see you next?
We are playing in 6 days' time, actually, at the Milk Boy in Philly on February the 16th. Easy to remember, 2 days after Valentine's Day. And if you forget that and you have a female partner, God help you. So we're playing there next Friday. And then on March the 30th, we're doing a new thing. Steve Cooper, the comedian, it's called Laughs and Lyrics, and he's going to do some stand-up. I'm going to do some solo stuff. And then I think he's a sort of Q&A interviewing me as well.
That's really cool. So you're going to get a chance to do some new V2 stuff, play some classic member stuff, and then do some solo stuff a little time after. So at Milk Boy, it sounds to me like you would like having someone do a write-up of the show and take awesome pictures. Is that right?
Is that you, buddy?
Can we make that happen? Can we cover V2?
Of course you can.
Oh my goodness.
That'd be great.
So we have that show coming up. We're going to get this up in an ample amount of time so we can promote that.
Good.
And then what's coming down the pike later? Are you guys going on tour? Are you guys going in the studio? Tell me what that's going to look like through 2024.
Well, I want to do more recording and more writing, but this single will really be, it's a whole first release for the new band, and that will say a lot about where we've come from and where we're going. And I'd like to go on tour, but we need to have a good agent for that. And, you know, like so many things, it's the cart and the horse and so on. A good agent wants to see you gig, and you need gigs, you need an agent to get you. So the hardest time for any new project is the beginning, and we're tackling it a day at a time as it comes at us.
Well, you are welcome here anytime to talk about what's going on. My mom always said, when I was a kid, she would say, hey, listen, say what you want about me, but if you're good to my children, I can't say anything back in return, right? And I will never forget the punk rock moment you gave my kid, ever. For the rest of my life, and to be able to have someone that I've listened to and I respect be nice to my child. You come in here 3 a.m. if you want to talk music. I will be here for you. In fact, for you folks watching at home, we have a new piece of our backdrop. We actually have the Vibrators V2 litho hanging on our backdrop wall. Thanks to Nigel. This is going to stay here. This isn't promotional. This is permanent, my friends. So I want to thank you very, very much. What else? What else do you have going on besides all of this if you need more stuff to do than what you already have?
No, that's what my life is. It's music. It always has been.
Yeah.
And I'm doing solo performances and performing with the Vibrators V2.
Love it.
And that, you know, it's pretty time consuming. And when you're not on a stage or whatever, you're writing and progressing. And one day I'll get the other 2 guys in. They're really nice. And because the lovely thing about a trio is that it's not a crowded room full of people. There's 3 of us.
Facts.
Yeah.
Right?
Really. And
I want to play a little name game with you. A little,
right.
like, I'm going to say a name, and you give me one word to describe in retort.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
This is a new thing I'm doing on my show that I absolutely wanted to do with you first. Okay? So, I'm going to start off, and just right off the top, the first thing that comes to your head when I say it. Are you ready?
I've grasped the concept, and I am ready.
Okay. I respect and appreciate that. I respect both your moxie and your candor, not necessarily in that order. Okay. So, here we go. First off, Joe Strummer.
was a hippie. and then he was a punk.
Okay.
But should it have been one word? Sorry, I've got it wrong.
Sir, I'll take what you can get.
Chameleon.
Chameleon. Ooh, good one. All right, relevant in the news this week, Ozzy Osbourne.
Wasted. Is that how I remember him?
Fair. Okay, the next up, the members.
I can't sum it up in one word. The members. It was everything to me.
Everything.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take it. Okay, so let's go with Marky Ramone.
Wig.
Wig. Ooh, Scorcher. All right, let's talk V2. One word.
Fantastic.
Current state of music.
Frightening.
The future of music.
This is 2 words, but 3. Who the hell knows? I mean, you can't. Yeah, crystal ball. No one knows.
Fair. Well, listen, man, this has been so much fun hanging out with you.
Yeah.
So I thank you so much for coming to the beautiful and spacious Keppel's Carpet podcast studio located in the Record Museum in Berlin, New Jersey. And please come back anytime, man. Please.
I will, and it's been an absolute pleasure, Eric, to be here today.
And I will tell Evie that you sent your regards.
Without a doubt, please do.
Will do, will do. Thank you so much, guys. You got it all here. You have Milk Boy, February 16th. Go see Vibrators V2. You have a solo show with Nigel Bennett and a comedy show by Steve Cooper. And that is, one more time,
March the 30th.
March the 30th. So look this up, get there, see the excitement now, because who knows, man, a year from now, they're going to be on some arena tour with the Smashing Pumpkins, and tickets are going to be astronomical, and you're going to miss your shot. So check out the Vibrators V2 as quickly as you can, and we will catch you soon. Keep rocking, and do me a favor, play nice with each other, everybody. Thanks.